I love gold!
Hi everyone, I'm Luke Hector and this is The Broken Meeple, a show where I rave and rant about board games, but usually more the latter. This is for a game that I have not seen many people review actually, at least not many people that tend to be in my spectrum of creators, and I'm kind of surprised by that, because it's been out for a fair while, it's been in the UK for some time, but very few people have talked about it. I've seen, one Dice Tower playthrough and that's about it. Yeah, not a lot of comments about this, and I'm surprised because A, I've seen a few people on Facebook talk pretty highly of it, but two, it's also shiny. I mean, don't people like shiny things? I mean, look at it. There's gold embossed all over the lid, and trust me, we're going to be seeing a lot more of that as we go through this. So I knew nothing about this game when it came out. I just heard people talk about it. I said it looked very pretty. Office Dog, new publisher, don't know much about them. The fact that it's got Legend of the Five Rings on there, I could probably guess that this was going to be a pasted theme, and yeah, spoiler alert, I'm kind of right on that. But this was portraying itself to be a fairly light, fairly smooth Euro, 60 to 90 minutes, not too long, not too complicated. And you know what, we could do with a few more of those lately, because most Euro games, I swear, when it comes to how popular they are, the bigger the box, the more expensive the box, and the more complex the rules, the better everybody shouts about it on Facebook. You know, it's basically the difference between something like Lords of Waterdeep getting a lot of attention on Facebook and Voidfall getting a lot of attention on Facebook. So I just really had to come into this fairly blind, bought myself a copy, got a bit of a tear on the top of there, which I'm not too happy with, but you know, I had to get stuck in and find out for myself. So is this going to be one of those hidden gems that nearly passed me by, or is this going to be one that you'll just forget about in 2 weeks' time?
Get on with it.
So in River of Gold, you're trying to get the most victory points. Yeah, go figure. You can tell how well this theme's going to work, don't you? But the idea of this is that it's played over a sequence of 2 eras, where essentially you have a stack of buildings in each, and as it drains over the course of the game, eventually the 2 of these stacks will drain out. That will trigger the end of the game. But what happens is that you have one of 3 actions that you can take with the use of a die. The die is essentially a 6-sided dice with a number and a region associated with it. So you have got 6 different regions here with its own kind of influence score track. And then you've got the River of Gold itself, which is this luxurious gold embossed river that goes all the way down the board until you get to the end and then loop back round. But what you do with your die is that you essentially have one of 3 actions you can pick. You can take your boat and sail it down the river. You can deliver to a customer, which is basically a hand of cards of these different people like monks and merchants and artisans, deliver the goods, you get a cool benefit, you get a perpetual ability, and maybe some endgame scoring. They vary in what they give you. And thirdly, you can build along the river itself. It starts off with some starter buildings and mostly just generic ports that get you a money every time you visit. But each space connects to 4 different ports, and if you build a building next door to it, so let's say I build one here, you pay the money, you build it, and then what happens is that anytime anybody, even you, visits it, you'll get a better bonus for it. So this one will give me a silk instead of a money, but because I own it and I have my bead on it, it will give me as the owner a special bonus even if I visit it myself. On top of that, you are gaining influence either by delivering to these customers or building along the river. And these score tracks for influence essentially are the same with all 6 of them in terms of the fact that they have a track and they get you bonuses as you pass over, but they have variable scoring from game to game. You shuffle up some scoring tiles, you dish them out, and basically there's a first, maybe a second, maybe a third place position for victory points for being first, second, or third on it. So it's essentially race to get further up the track. As I said, the theme is relatively dry here. Players will simply continue in this fashion, rolling the die at the end of their turn so they can plan for the next one, choosing one of the 3 actions, resolve, next player, but they will also be able to potentially claim a spot on some of these public objectives, which are basically fulfill the criteria, get points, and play just carries on until the stack of buildings is drained out twice. First time the first stack is drained out, basically the Emperor comes and visits all the buildings and gives you bonuses. The second stack triggers the end of the game. And of course, total up all the VPs from the influence tracks, how many customers you've delivered to, as well as the points you've earned during the game, and see who's got the most and see who wins. A pretty simple overview, but then the game is pretty simple, and that's definitely one of its strong points. This is a very smooth and very elegant game. I mean, FAQ moments should be kept down to a minimum here. The rulebook itself is well laid out, a good icon glossary at the back, but everything here is explained pretty well with a lot of pictorial examples. I mean, the text is a little bit small, but there's not a huge amount of text to read. I mean, the actions are fairly standard actions that you've seen in other Euro games, so if you're used to this kind of thing, you'll be able to pick it up pretty quickly. But honestly, even if you were just to learn this from scratch, I don't think it would take you that long to get through this, teach other players, and then get going. If you're really desperate, you can even play this on Board Game Arena at the moment, which is actually what I did first before I got my copy. And honestly, even without knowing what the interface was, it didn't take me long to figure out how the game worked. It's just nice, easy rules. But also the game is just very smooth in how it operates. One or two minor blemishes, but otherwise the turns proceed fairly quickly and very elegantly. There's no point where the game lurches to a halt. You know, the worst contender is probably the end of Era 1 when the buildings drain out and the Emperor visits all the buildings, but that just means people collect a bunch of resources and stuff. Doesn't take very long. Other than that, the actions are quite short, and the rules themselves, I mean, you've literally got one of 3 actions that you pick, and it's based on what you roll on the die. You can augment the die with Divine Favor, which is essentially a resource to augment the die and wrap it round from 1 to 6 and 6 to 1, vice versa. But yeah, nothing grinds to a halt. This is the most well-oiled Euro I've come across, which I know is kind of a weird metaphor to use, but you know the Euros where it grinds and you can hear those gears turning as you're trying to get through all the little fiddly rules that the game has. This one doesn't have a single fiddly rule in it. Everything is clear as day, everything is smooth, everything is elegant. My God, finally somebody gets it. Now the game is called River of Gold. Maybe it should be called River of Gold Member, because seriously, I'm pretty sure that character came and did his number on this game.
Can I paint as Yoo-hoo Gold? How about new, you crazy Dutch bastard?
This game is littered with a ton of embossed gold all over the place. Anything on this board, from tiny little specks of artwork to like this little building row down here, to the gold symbol on the influence boards, the score track even has the odd little bit next to it with some artwork, but primarily the river itself, which is one constant stream of embossed gold, looks beautiful. This thing is so damn pretty, it's unreal. But with the caveat that obviously when everything is embossed gold, if you're playing this in strong light, you do sometimes get that sort of thing of not like to the point of burning, but seriously, you know, if you're trying to take Instagram photos of this thing and you've got strong overhead lights, you might find that the light glare can be a little bit high, and that's even before you start sleeving cards and that. Which honestly, I've done for completeness, but the component quality in this of the cards is pretty good card stock. I don't think you actually need to sleeve them. But on top of just everything looking beautiful, the component quality is really good. This is a good, sturdy board. You know, these are good, good chunky cardboard tiles that are easy to read. You've got, money, which is basically the typical sort of like single and giant Gooooooooold gold, which, oh my God, I am so glad they stuck to cardboard here, because I am sick and tired of using this currency from Asia, where you've got to constantly poke the tiny holes out of the coins because they usually have a hole in the middle. It's like basically like eating polos. Well, this doesn't have that problem. You know, the artwork is on there and you don't have to poke holes. Thank God. Everything else is kind of standard. I mean, it's just cardboard tokens for the most part and, wooden beads and stuff, but nothing feels, like low quality. I mean, you've got some like little ship models there made out of wood. The die, really nice. It's custom. It feels good. It's chunky. It's satisfying to roll. There's nothing here that feels like stupidly cheap, but then the game is not that expensive either. I mean, you can buy this for a reasonable price for this level of production quality and this amount of gold. I mean, seriously, I swear I could melt this board down and sell it on the black market, I'm pretty sure, with the amount of gold that's in here. But it's done very well, and that's on top of your player boards, which granted are just linen finished card, but that's fairly floppy. But, you know, again, beautiful artwork. This is all from the Legends of the Five Ring universe, which granted, the theme means nothing in this game. Literally, you could have themed this anything to do with Asia and it would have still worked. So you can ignore this bit at the bottom where it says Legend of the Five Rings. But hey, the Legend of the Five Ring games that I've played all have beautiful artwork, and this is no exception. So if it makes it look better, then what the hell? It's a Euro at the end of the day.
I admire its purity.
The game doesn't take very long to play either for what it is. 60 to 90 minutes on the box, and that's pretty accurate. Yeah, finally, somebody knows how to put the right time on the box. It doesn't take that long to play. 90 minutes should be as long as it takes for a 3 to 4 player game, well, 4 player even, to teach and play the game. It really isn't that long. I mean, the absolute max this will take you is 2 hours, and that's if you've got a long teacher, or you've got the, well, long as in they take a while to teach it, or if you've got very AP players. And I do mean very AP players, because there's only so much you have to, plan ahead on here. You'll have, this turn I want to do this, next turn I want to do this, but you've only got to pick from one of 3 actions. And they're very straightforward actions, and your die is going to dictate what's kind of available. Yes, you've got the divine favor, so you can get past the luck mitigation of the die to a decent extent, although not always. You have to accept that occasionally you might get hosed in that regard. And I do mean only very occasionally. But the fact is that I should be able to clearly see what is worth doing and plan my turn in advance, because you roll your die at the end of your turn, much like the Carcassonne house rule where you draw a tile at the end of your turn. I still don't know why people play it the other way. It doesn't make any sense. But, here, I've rolled my die, I've got a 3. While 3 other people are taking their turn, I can look at the board and go, well, if I do 3 with that boat, I'll get this. 3 with that boat, I'll get that. None of these guys are good for a 3, and I don't want to spend the divine favor, so we'll ignore that for now. Okay, so if I build in this corn area for number 3, well, I could get a hole on that track. Oh, that seems pretty good. You know what? Yeah, I'll build there. Hopefully no one will beat me to it, and that's good. Oh, it's my turn now. And you get on with it. The only time this thing should grind to a halt in terms of downtime is if people are those sort of players who can't plan their turn in advance and have to wait until it's their turn before they think.
We killed them and ate their livers.
Yes, I know, it annoys me as well. But, this one just goes at a very quick pace with fairly minimal downtime, and the length of the game for this type of level of depth is suitable. I think 60 to 90 minutes is about right. If it took any longer, I think it would outstay its welcome, and it's not going to play in anything less than 60 minutes. I mean, maybe with 2 players who really know what they're doing, but now you're looking at 60 to 90, and yay. Finally, I do like long Euros every now and again if they're crunchy and have enough reason to justify it, but this one justifies a 60 to 90 minute time frame for what I would consider to be a light/medium game. It's kind of in that sort of borderline area. I suppose light. You could compare this depth to something like Lords of Waterdeep, I guess, maybe a little bit more than Lords of Waterdeep, but yeah, good time frame with minimal downtime. Wow. Not something you say very often with Eurogames.
I don't think any of us expected him to say that.
Depth-wise, there's a decent amount of decision space in here without having to go too far with it. It's not like, oh, this is going to burn your brain. You've only got 1 of 3 actions to pick and the die has an effect on that. But there's enough opportunities to sort of go, well, I do want to build there, but maybe I should deliver to this person first. Well, in that case, I'm going to need those resources. Where can I get them? Well, on the river, if I go over here, I can do this. But then if I get influence and go along this track, I'll get a free porcelain jug, so I can use that and deliver to that one. That'd be good. If I sail all the way round to the back, I get a bonus for doing so. That could be quite cool. And the interaction in this game is not entirely multiplayer solitaire. Yeah, you're trying to score the most points and competition is high for these tracks. But you build all on the same river. So if I build in a particular spot here, then somebody else could build above me in this spot here, somebody could build in the opposite spot, and every space on the board is connected to 4 ports. So among all the players, you may create some areas which are very lucrative in terms of the bonuses you get.
Demand suddenly skyrocketed. You all saw it.
But everybody gets an owner bonus when they have that building built. So it's like, I could go over there and get myself about 6 money, free influence, and a couple of resources, which sounds fantastic for a turn. But I'm giving you 3 points, you 2 points, you a bucket of stuff. It's like, do I want to do that? I guess I do, yeah, fine. So even on other players' turns, you could be getting a nice little something, and everyone's going to build. You can't play this game doing nothing but deliver, nothing but build, and certainly sailing isn't going to get you enough points by itself. You're going to be doing a combination of all 3, but you just might focus in certain areas. But I like the fact that people building on the board creates a little bit of interaction. Not tons. I mean, you don't, there's only, you can go through each other and you're not blocking spaces on the influence track. And I can't stop you delivering to a particular person. I can't augment your die. So there's no negative interaction, thankfully. So yeah, the interaction is there, but it's not like in spades. But this, as I mentioned in my 100th podcast episode, is kind of the type of interaction I like, where you have a board state, everybody contributes to the board state, and that in itself influences your turns. That's the sort of Euro interaction I like, and even though it's not the strongest here compared to other games that do this, it's still present, just in the right amount. As much as I've talked a decent amount of praise about this game, we also have to understand that this is not the most unique or innovative game out there. The theme, as I said, means nothing, and all the mechanics in this game you've seen before. The idea that you get resources and deliver to customers on cards. The idea that you build and you get bonuses for visiting buildings. The idea that you've got influence tracks where you don't block each other, you simply get as far as you can, get some bonuses, and it's first, second, third for points. Nothing in here, even the die, getting actions and having stuff tied to them. Again, we've seen it done before. It's not like it's being done in a particularly unique way here. This is not going to win any innovation awards. But it's creating a very simple, elegant style of game, which, given that a lot of these games tend to overcomplicate things, is still welcomed. But yeah, you might have already got Euro similar to this elsewhere, that you could play, whereas this one, if you buy this one, it's kind of adding to what you already have as opposed to, something brand new. But for someone like me, who's probably burnt out on stuff like Lords of Waterdeep and some of those, more Pillars of the Earth, some of those earlier, lighter Euros, this one kind of feels like something, this is something a little bit fresher, a little bit more modern for it. But again, still nothing that new. The board does look great. It's quite a big board, so it is a little bit of a table hog. Also, sometimes this is very minor, but one or two people sometimes trip up with the sailing movement because it's not like a caterpillar block track where you can clearly see where you move along it. Here, it's a windy river where, because every spot is adjacent to 4 separate ports, it has to split the spaces in kind of weird, curvy, wavy lines. So sometimes when you're moving across this river, you sometimes get like, oh wait, did I skip a space, or am I counting right here? It trips up the occasional person, but it's not something that was a massive regular thing. But the main little thing I want to touch on that's a little bit of a negative is the variety in this. There's not a huge amount of it. You only have so many different characters that you can deliver to, and even though there are different iterations of the same one, mainly the thing that changes is whether it affects a particular region over another, or whether it scores for a particular thing over another. It's good that you've got endgame scoring opportunities from here, but I think the main way you score points in this game is by stuff you get during the game, and of course the influence tracks. Yes, there are more opportunities to score for doing these, but unless you get the Elder, who takes a lot to deliver to but scores you double the points for an influence track, you won't really score that many points from the other things here, which is basically points for owned buildings, or points for every 3 resources, points for every 5 money. It's like the Elder is going to get you more points than the rest of these on here. But this is about as good as the variety gets. Otherwise, there's not a huge amount. The scoring for these 6 regions, you just shuffle up 6 tiles and dish them out at random, whoopie-doo. One is higher than the other, as if it makes a difference that the 5 region scores highly this game and now it doesn't. It really doesn't affect things that much. The buildings, they're the same every game, although you will take some of them out, so there is a little bit of differentiation there, but honestly, you wouldn't notice the difference from game to game, really. I mean, the buildings get cycled through quite quickly. Every time you complete a journey on the river, they get dished out as well, so there's a specific number from the book to say how many you need for setup, but I wouldn't really notice from game to game which ones had disappeared and which ones had turned up. The river layouts, these don't change. You'll have starter buildings, but that's just based on player count. It's not, overly randomized, apart from just a couple of, silk might be up there, or silk might be down there, whatever. Even the public objectives are pretty limited in scope. I mean, you've only got, I believe, unless I left some in the bag, 6 different public objectives. They're double-sided for player count, but that's it. So, deliver to 2 customers of the same type, 3 buildings of the same type, reach a certain spot on the influence track, own a building of each type, deliver to 3 different customers, and have influence in all 6 regions. There you go, there's all the different public objectives you can get. It would have been nice if they could have done a few more of these. I mean, yeah, there's limited scope for them, I guess, but I don't know, just more than 6 would have been nice. Bear in mind you're using 3 every game. The only other way to add a little bit of variety to this is to have player powers. So each player, depending on what colour they do, gets to look at their 2 patron cards for their colour and choose one to have a player power for the game. And these are cool. I mean, if you want to add a little bit of flexibility to the game, then by all means do. I can take or leave them. They're basically a variant. If I use them, great. If I'm teaching the game to brand new players, I might just say, yeah, you know what? One less complication, and I won't really miss them. You know, the game is already cool enough without these. These are just an extra little bonus. But that's kind of just the one thing that slightly hurts the game. The fact that if you play this, you'll probably put it away for a bit and then come back to it later, put it away for a bit, come back to it later. If you start playing this, like, 5-10 times in the space of a week or 2 or something, you might find it gets a little bit repetitive. But not to the point where it gets boring. I've played this plenty of times already, in person and on Board Game Arena, and I'm certainly not bored with it yet. You know, I still enjoy playing it. I know that it's going to be a similar type of game each time I play it, but I play it for its smoothness and its elegance and the fact that I can teach it to a wide variety of people. You know, it definitely has a place in the board game, on the board game shelf for that reason. River of Gold has really surprised me, actually. The only major blemish I can really say about the game is the fact that it could use a bit more variety in some aspects. Maybe a few more bits of variety with the buildings, more player powers, maybe a bit more variation with what the different influence tracks are like. There's certainly grounds for it to improve in that regard, but I reckon a lot of that could be fixed with an expansion further down the line. And if this game is popular enough, I don't see why it couldn't get an expansion that doesn't up the complexity too much, but adds enough reason to sort of vary the game from time to time. But everything else about the game is done very, very well. This looks beautiful on the table. The gold embossing just helps to give it its own kind of unique look. But it's, linen finished, player boards, sturdy cardstock, good cardboard components, a good custom die, wooden pieces, cardboard resources, yes, but to be fair, you could probably substitute with other resources if you want, or metal coins, but, get some of those Japanese metal coins from, I forget who does them, the one who does the different sets of coins for different regions. Find the Japanese one, and it would just perfectly suit for this game. But other than just its looks, even though the theme is kind of non-existent, what this game excels at is the fact that it's aiming to be a light Euro, kind of upper end of light Euro, with smooth, elegant rules, not too much downtime, and a good running time length. And in all those aspects, it excels with flying colours, or flying gold, I guess, in this case. The rules are dead simple. The rulebook is nice and thin and easy to follow. With good examples, you should have no trouble getting into this game. Even with the player powers, it's not that complicated. There are pretty much no FAQ moments in the game at all, but the turns are nice and smooth. You just pick one action, do it. Right, I've resolved it. Can I claim a mastery point? No, I can't. Right, roll the die, next person. Super quick turns at times, especially if you already have planned ahead, which you can do because you roll the die at the end of your turn. Only the most AP of players should be slowing this down, allowing you to get this within the 60 to 90 minute time frame that the box suggests. And finally, we have a game that keeps to the time frame on the sodding box. It adds to that a player age, which is mostly there for iconography. I would have liked, this is more of an iconography guide, but your player board reminds you of the key rules, what you do on your turn, the conversions you can do at any time, the maximum limits you have for resources and that. So everything is explained with very little need to look in the rulebook after you start playing. It's just a very solid light Euro, and for someone like me who's getting burnt out on some of those older light Euros like Lords of Waterdeep and Pillars of the Earth, which I still think are great games, but whenever they're suggested to be played, I'm like, I don't know, we got something a little bit fresher, something a bit newer, I don't know, I feel like I've played those games to death. This is now fitting that slot. I need a light, dry Euro that I can teach to all sorts of players that will give me enough decision space, look good, and give me exactly what I need from this type of Euro. I do wish that there was a bit more variety in the setup, but you still get a little bit of interaction from players with how they build, and I think that this can improve down the line. It's not quite at the top level, but I got nothing to say, nothing that's going to stop me from joining it in its river of gold, with its gold everywhere, by giving it a gold seal. This is a seal of distinction. It's a 9 out of 10. I think this is a great light Euro. Does the job really nicely, and it's going to stay on my shelf. This one is easily one of the best games I played this year. Could it be a top 10 of the year? We'll have to see, because Essen is coming up and there's going to be a lot more games there. But certainly, if I was to do a top 10 of the year now, easily it'd be on there. It's definitely one of my favorites I've played, because it knows what it wants to be. It does what it sets out to do without any unnecessariness. I mean, this is kind of almost like, you know, if people are going to ask me, Luke, you keep saying the word streamline, that you like that about a game. You know, what kind of game examples are you going to give for streamlined games? Here we go. River of Streamlined Gold, whatever you want to call it. This is smooth, elegant, quick. It just does the job really nicely. 9 out of 10. So that's it for me on this episode of The Broken Meeple. If you like what you see, then please thumb it up on YouTube and thumb it up on Board Game Geek when it goes live on the page. Let's get the lights out and share it on Facebook and tell everyone about this game, preferably sharing the video if you can. Don't forget to check out the rest of the content on the show and let me know your thoughts in the comments. Is this a game that you enjoy? Certainly heard a lot of positive thoughts from people on Instagram and Facebook when I've posted pictures, but let me know what you think about the Board Game Arena version or the board version. Would you only play one or the other? And if we do an expansion, what would you like to see in the expansion? What do you reckon could improve this game further, particularly from a variety aspect? So until next time, remember, regardless of how much money you're willing to give me for melting this on the black market, for all its gold, it's still only a game. So take care, and bye for now.